Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Thought Leader Spotlight, focusing on what it really means to revolutionize the mortgage industry through working smarter, not harder. I'm joined today with CIO at TRAiNED AI, Kyle Jenkins, as well as Dr. Yvonne Darius, co-founder of Optimal Blue and co-founder and current director at Wilco. Kyle, we'll start with you. When we spoke yesterday, you shared an analogy of re-looking at the mortgage process by thinking of it as a box and no longer just looking at it at face value, turning it upside down, opening it up, emptying out the contents as a way to really rethink how mortgages can get done. Can you elaborate on that a little bit further and talk through some of the opportunities in the space to truly rethink the mortgage and lending process?
I will certainly try to. It's been a 30-year journey of development, concentrating on office proficiency, productivity systems, capacity planning. How do we manage our workload and our efforts in multiple industries that I've been involved with? Real estate, now in a mortgage industry related processes, banking, small banking, big banking, manufacturing, sales. And it's always been this challenge of how do we have our staff work smarter? How do we have efficiency for our customers, our clients, if we're offering services, and really unpacking the problems and analyzing the problems, taking data and analyzing data. And the data is the truth. Whether the data is bad or it's good, it always tells the truth of where do our problems lie? Where can we discover and find proficiency and efficiencies for different processes, and really discovering it, like you said, and I described it as that box, packing everything, putting it in a box, and this is our business. Let's actually change that and take everything out, look at it in a different perspective, turn it over, flip it over, experiment with it. If I put it in the box in a different format, how does it change? How can it provide a difference to my business? Working in a linear fashion or a concurrent fashion, how does that affect me as a producer? How can I then be more proficient for my clients and customers, whether they're internal or external?
Yeah. And Kyle, can you drill into that a little bit further when you talk about linear versus concurrent workflow?
Sure. Linear is doing one thing at a time, going into a loan file, working on it, pulling it back and opening up another loan file and taking a look at it, whether it's a paper folder, a digital folder. Normally, we don't work like that, right? If you're a cook in a kitchen, I'm cooking on two different pots and two different pans, right? We should work the same way. I don't have to stand in a file, sit in a file, and wait for a driver's license. I should be able to go into another file and look at the HOI at the same time, look at a sales addendum in a third file, and understand what's going on. Three things at one time, not waiting for the next thing to happen, the next step to take place.
Got it. And Yvonne, if you don't mind expounding on how task-based workflows and activities come into play to facilitate that concurrent workflow.
In order to be more effective and to work smarter, you need granularity in a system. Most of the older systems are designed with an inherent workflow that is not visible and is linear. If anything changes in the file, you have to be able to go back and do things, change things, but you do not want to go through all the steps again. Granularity is the key. Granularity and the ability to get in and out of the loan, quote unquote, with ease so that you can use the right resource, whether it be automation, a specialist, or an operator, to do the things that need to be done at the time of need. And the other thing that makes you more effective is that if you do not always look at a screen with 100 values on it, to do 7 different things, you need a lot less training if you have in front of you the things that you need in order to accomplish that. That's what an activity-based system is doing, right? It's putting in front of you the activity that you need to perform at this point and nothing else.
Excellent. And Yvonne, when you mention that someone is just looking at exactly what they need, I've heard you use the phrase checking the checker who checked the checker. What
Right.
does that mean in context of a loan that maybe bounced back from an underwriter and is now back to the underwriter? Can you talk about the implications of having a process where you're no longer having to check everything and you're only seeing just what's changed on the loan?
Right. In other words, what you try to put in front of an underwriter is the things that he or she needs to decide on the file. That means not going back and checking whether the appraisal is the right value, because that's already been done, but whether that value within the parameters of the loan is what you want. And the same for income and all the other things. But it is the values that have been verified by others that you use to underwrite. You don't go and verify them yourself. That's where we're at in that context, right? So you want to help the underwriter be more efficient at making a decision by putting in front of them the things that we know about the loan and that we know for a fact about the loan.
Absolutely. And Kyle, when we recently spoke, you mentioned the example of having to check a driver's license 5 different times. Can you,
Right.
again, expand on that concept and how you see that problem leading to slowness and inefficiency within the lending process?
There's a data quality control aspect to that. If we believe that the first person that did the check on it, whether it's AI or a human, we want to assume that it's correct, that it's true. Do we have to constantly go back and look at that again? Why do I need to ask somebody else to look at that driver's license that I just looked at myself? I understand the reasoning behind checking the checker, but how many times is too much? How much time do we lose? How much money do we lose? How much cost is there? Whether it's the mortgage industry or anything else, we have to inherently trust those processes and save that time in that process from expanding out, because then it becomes not just a driver's license, it's every other document that we don't trust and believe in. And it makes it difficult.
Yeah. And Kyle, you hit on everyone's favorite buzzword right now, AI. And
Sure.
almost everyone is going through some phase of adoption and integrating AI into their workflows. Can you share a few nuggets of change management best practices that can help lenders implement and get buy-in for an AI solution?
What are the best practices right now? And right now, there are no best practices. Everyone is trying to experiment with it. We've been on calls with Microsoft where we have presented ideas to Microsoft AI developers on what they can do, and they had not considered that they're able to do some stuff with driver's licenses and pay stubs and extracting data. We talked about the challenges of pay stubs where you have 3,000 different versions of a pay stub. And then every company marks data differently within their own environment. What's a vacation to one company is time off to another company is labeled different from a third company. We have actually worked with Microsoft to enhance how to read tables and how to extract data. We're not the experts in it. No one particularly is the expert in it. Everyone is experimenting as we're going here. Now, of course, some people have become more advanced than others. They've become more advanced than others, but it is taking care and with the right perspective and doing the right thing along with it. Being good stewards and doing no harm is the adage that everybody wants to go to. And that goes back to trusting the process, trusting the data as well. That the data is the truth, whether it's good data or bad data, we need to trust in that. We've started experimenting with AI agents versus bots. Bots are decisions, and it's based off of what I tell it to do. If this, do something else. If that, do another thing. Agents actually will make predictive decisions based off of evidence of what it's gathered and collected that you've done previously. It can make a decision based off of all of my emails, how to automatically respond to an email. I can then create an agent to make a decision on what to do with a driver's license that isn't valid? Do I need to notify the loan officer? Do I need to notify the underwriter based off of what stage it's in? I don't have to write thousands of rules with it. I can teach an AI agent how to make that decision.
No, those are some excellent examples. And what I really hear you saying when it comes to adoption of AI is it's okay to be bold and be adventurous with any solutions that are out there, because that's how anyone is going to learn right now. But you do want to have a touch of caution to just make sure that you're trained carefully, because it is uncharted territory in a large part with these agents and from a generative AI perspective. You've had plenty of experience with AI going back to some of its early days. What about from your perspective, some tidbits on how lenders and anyone listening in can go about ensuring that they're implementing AI cautiously and carefully?
In a nutshell, I would say you want to use AI to extract, find, and verify the data that you would need to make a decision. And that's really what we're trying to do within Charlie, is to make sure that we can put in front of people the things they need to make the decision and tell them how these things were verified and how they were obtained, right? There's a lot of AI that can be used in filtering and checking and those kind of things without having to make the ultimate decision, which I think is still a human decision in the underwriting world, for instance, right? But there's a lot of work that can be done by agents and or bots and or machine learning that can help you get the data in a form that is an easier way than you going and look up all the details and putting the numbers together.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, Kyle.
I completely agree with you. We're not here to remove underwriters. We're not here to remove humans from making the decision. We're developing processes to assist on the mundane.
And Yvonne, I know we often talk a lot about variability and how that impacts the overall process. And that because the mortgage workflow has traditionally been linear, when you have any re-entrance or anything moves backward, it throws off that variability, which can blow up the process. Do you mind expanding on that a little bit and talking through how AI and task-based workflows can help alleviate some of that variability within the mortgage workflow?
Yeah. Within the mortgage workflow, a lot of the variability comes from changes during the process, right? In other words, the process is inherently reentrant, and reentrant processes are notoriously difficult to manage. And it also usually wreaks havoc with your bottlenecks if you don't properly manage how the work comes to those bottlenecks. And so the main thing about variability is that variability causes things to take longer. By definition, that's the queuing theory aspect of it, right? You can reduce variability by making your processes shorter, because the predictability of a shorter process is much higher than a process that contains 15 steps, for instance. So by doing that, the more predictability you have in the individual steps or individual activities, the better you will be able to predict what your performance is overall. That's how I think about it.
And Kyle, we've hit on the data that's extracted and the data that's available in the origination process. Before we close things out, do you have some final words on how leveraging some of this never seen before data, when you start breaking the mortgage process down into smaller pieces, can you talk through what opportunities that are new to the industry because of this new data and what lenders can do with it?
Automation, providing automation then creates faster approvals. It removes a lot of the inefficient processes that we've have, which equals cost savings. It's cost savings to the lenders to be able to process those documents, and even the downstream processors, right? There becomes this inherent understanding that the documents that are being passed to us from the recorded mortgage and the title insurance is true. And if we believe that to be the truth, then we can become more efficient overall as an industry.
Excellent. And Yvonne, any parting words from your end on what it means to work smarter and not harder?
I was going to comment on the inefficiencies, but also the errors, right? There are errors that happen in the process. If you have a more granular process, it's much easier to find where the errors occur and then focus your attention on improving that part of the process without having to redo the whole process. Also, it points you almost immediately to the areas where automation would give you a significant step up. So those are the kind of things that you gain from having a more granular approach to things rather than this kind of one size fits all approach.
Excellent. And what I'm hearing in the context of this work smarter and not harder is if you really relook at your operation and look at the data will point you to the opportunities where maybe there's a bottleneck in your process or where errors are occurring, where things have high variability and sometimes take longer and sometimes take smaller. But as you start to rethink your process, look at the data and the data will point you to the areas where you should be focusing on automation or ensuring that you have the proper staffing to handle and ensure a smooth process. Because you can go through and automate anything, but unless you're being smart about where you're implementing that automation, you're just going to be getting the same results.
The other thing I was going to say is that you have to have a system that allows you to look at that data because the system needs to produce the data so you can make the decisions, right? Otherwise, you're back into the, okay, let's look at the last 6 months and see what happened.
And you have to be open-minded that you make mistakes, but it's reading those mistakes and evaluating those mistakes where you can then become professional. Right. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Excellent. Kyle, Yvonne, thank you both so much for joining me today. For those interested in learning more about TRAiNED, you may visit them at gettrained.ai. And for those looking to learn more about Wilco, you may visit us at wilco.com/more-info. Kyle, Yvonne, thank you again. And to everyone listening in, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.